It surprises me. I never thought a bottom feeder like you would be eating at such a fancy restaurant. At the restaurant, I happened to run into Marcus, who heads the department for one of our biggest clients. My older brother, Ryan, who was 10 years my senior, was taking me out to dinner for my birthday. Marcus was the type of person who always treated me with contempt and spoke in the most demeaning terms. I just smiled politely at him because I was used to it, but Ryan spoke out right away. Jordan's older brother is me. We came over for supper because it's his birthday today. I appreciate you always taking care of him. Ryan greeted him politely, but Marcus scowled and remarked, I see. Jordan's big brother obviously splurged on him because he couldn't have afforded such a property with his own income. But really, isn't it a bit excessive to spend this much money on your younger brother, even if it is his birthday? If you're Jordan's brother, you're probably not all that superior to him. You're older now, and I doubt you're earning a lot of money, aren't you? Hearing my brother mocked infuriated me, even though I was accustomed to being humiliated myself. I yelled, Marcus, I don't care if you look down on me, before I could stop myself. I'm accustomed to it, but you can't insult my brother, whom I greatly admire, and I won't put up with it. Leave now, please. Marcus's expression contorted in rage as soon as I said that, and I knew I had made a mistake. Usually, I would dismiss his comments with a blank stare, but this time, with my brother in the picture, I became angry. However, it was too late. Marcus laughed softly and added, Oh, so you dare speak to me like that, Jordan? In the most threatening voice I'd ever heard him use. You truly don't know who you're playing with. In a panic, I briefly considered getting down on my knees and pleading, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. However, I couldn't help but believe that I wasn't at fault, so I glared at Marcus instead of apologizing. Kneel and apologize, Jordan, Marcus snarled, sneering down at me. Consider how amusing it would be to witness someone groveling in such a posh establishment. Make a favorable impression on the other patrons. I glared at him even more and refused to apologize. Marcus smirked and continued, If you won't apologize. All of a sudden, he swung the pricey cognac he was holding and threw its contents straight at Ryan's face before I could react. Whoa! Ryan yelled uncontrollably. I was stunned. What the devil are you doing? Wait. Do you have a breakdown? Flustered by Marcus's ludicrous actions, I demanded. You're quite bold to respond to me. Get down on your knees now. You'd better follow my advice if you don't want to lose your job. Marcus gave a bark. However, Ryan calmly replied, Wow, as he wiped the dripping booze off his face. I'm genuinely in awe, I must say. In my 37 years of life, I've seen a lot, but I never thought I'd get a pricey bottle of cognac poured all over my face. I may be the only person in the world to have ever enjoyed this luxury. It's somewhat of an honor, to be honest. The cost of this drink alone is thousands of dollars, or even tens of thousands. It's similar to receiving a cash shower. What an opulent experience. His reaction was so unexpectedly cheerful that I nearly burst out laughing. The only one who wasn't amused was Marcus. What the hell? Is Jordan's brother insane? You two are both absolute morons. Marcus spat out, clearly thrown off. Then Ryan turned to me and said, Jordan, I know you wouldn't do this, but just in case, you don't have to apologize to this guy, all right? Marcus scowled and scoffed. Your brother is just as arrogant as you, but that's fine. If you refuse to apologize, I don't care. I'll simply cut off all business with your company. Without our partnership, your company will probably go under. And when that happens, Jordan, you'll have to take responsibility and resign. No, actually, you'll be fired on the spot. Hell, the whole company might collapse. Either way, you're out of a job. Marcus laughed maliciously, clearly enjoying himself. At that moment, Kenneth, the restaurant owner who had noticed the commotion, walked over with a towel for my brother to wipe his face. Then, Mr. Kirkland of Kirkland Corporation, who had been sitting at the table with Marcus, also noticed the commotion and walked over to our table. Surrounded by various people, Marcus said, "Ha! Everyone's watching, Jordan. You just disrespected an important business partner. You're fired." Watching Marcus laughing gleefully, I didn't miss the cold stares from both Kenneth and Mr. Kirkland. Only my brother seemed to be genuinely enjoying the situation, grinning from ear to ear. Now that I fully grasped the situation, I confidently said, "You're the one who's getting fired first." Marcus's eyes widened in shock, and then the surprising truth was revealed. My name is Jordan. I'm a 27-year-old sales representative at a manufacturing company. My job is going fairly well, and I consider myself lucky to work in a friendly and supportive environment. Jordan, starting next month, you'll be taking over the Kirkland Corporation account. It's a big one, so do your best. One day, my senior colleague Kyle told me. Understood. Kirkland Corporation is one of our biggest clients, right? I'll do my best to handle the account as smoothly as you have. I responded enthusiastically, determined to meet expectations. But then Kyle continued, looking a bit apologetic. Actually, they've switched their representative on their end too. Until recently, a woman named Hannah was in charge, but they just reassigned someone named Marcus. I met him the other day, and he's quite the character. He straight up told me, "You're boring. Get a younger guy to handle our account." I mean, I'm only in my late 30s, but I guess I'm not young enough for him anymore. So I talked to our president, Mr. Turner, and he said, "Then let's have Jordan take over." I had thought my skills had earned me the responsibility of handling a major client, but knowing the real reason behind it left me a little disappointed. Still, it was the president's decision, so I had no choice but to rise to the challenge. Understood. I'll do my best to earn Marcus's approval, I answered, using the words to motivate myself. I've dealt with difficult clients before, and in the business world, you meet all kinds of people. Gaining more experience helps me grow, so I decided to stay calm and take on the responsibility. I officially took over the Kirkland Corporation account after receiving a full briefing from Kyle. I had some urgent matters to confirm with our new contact, so I called Marcus as a way to introduce myself. "Hello, this is Jordan from Turner Corporation's sales department. Is Marcus available?" When I called the company and asked that, the man on the other end of the line said, "I'm Marcus." Since first impressions are crucial, I put on my most energetic and professional tone. "Hi, Marcus. I'm Jordan, and I'll be handling your account from now on. I'll do my best to serve you well, so I look forward to working with you." Then he responded, "Hemph. Young guys are so loud and full of energy. I would have preferred someone calmer." But Kyle, the previous account manager, told me Marcus asked for a younger person to handle our account. I couldn't help but wonder, he's saying the complete opposite. Still, I couldn't afford to falter now. "My apologies. I'll make an effort to be more composed. I appreciate your guidance moving forward," I replied, adjusting my tone to be calmer yet still polite. Then Marcus said, "Hemph. I don't really care. But young guys are more fun to push around." I started to understand him. I see, he's the type who always has a comeback for everything. Definitely a troublesome person. I braced myself, determined to handle him professionally, and ended the call on a positive note. "Kyle, you weren't kidding. Marcus is quite the handful," I reported back to Kyle, who was still nearby. "Sorry, Jordan. I really dumped a troublesome client on you," Kyle apologized, looking guilty. "It's not your fault at all," I reassured him. I was surrounded by great colleagues, so even if some clients were difficult, I felt I could handle it. My interactions with the contradictory and capricious Marcus were never easy, but somehow I managed to keep things running smoothly without angering him. Because of that, both Kyle and our president, Mr. Turner, began to recognize my efforts. "Jordan, I'm glad we assigned you to this account. I actually heard that Marcus had conflicts with other companies before, so I was a bit worried when he took over. But thanks to you, things are running smoothly. Honestly, if a major client like Kirkland Corporation were to cut ties with us, we'd be in serious trouble, Mr. Turner told me. Thank you. So far, I've been managing somehow. I'll keep doing my best, I responded to Mr. Turner. That day, after a long and busy day at work, I finally headed home. As I stepped off the train at my station, my phone rang. Who could it be? I glanced at the caller ID. Ryan. It was my brother. Hello. Hey, Ryan. When I answered the phone, I heard Ryan's cheerful voice on the other end. How have you been? Tomorrow's Jordan's birthday, right? I thought I'd give you a call to see if you're free for a meal. There's quite an age gap between Ryan and me, 10 years, to be exact. My father, Mark, had been married twice, so Ryan and I are half-siblings. Ryan's mother is a woman named Rachel. She was my father's first wife, but my father had a short temper and would immediately yell at or corner his wife whenever he was displeased. Rachel, unable to endure the emotional abuse, eventually left the house. At that time, Ryan was 7 years old. In most cases, when a child is that young, they usually go with their mother. Naturally, Rachel tried to take my brother with her, but my father said, Ryan is intelligent and a capable son. He has value. He belongs to me, so leave him behind. Desperate not to be separated from her son, Rachel initially tried to stay and make the marriage work, but my father was relentless. You're an eyesore. Get out of here. I'll take care of the divorce papers, he told her, forcing her out of the house. Of course, Ryan didn't want to be separated from his mother either. He cried and begged my father, but his pleas were ignored. The following year, my father remarried my mother, Marie. It still amazed me that such a terrible man managed to remarry, but my father came from a wealthy family. Through family connections, he was constantly presented with arranged marriage opportunities. Wealthy, sheltered women, completely unaware of his true nature, ended up marrying him. Both Rachel and Ryan were raised in privileged households with little experience with men. On top of that, my father was very good at maintaining a charming facade, making himself seem like a perfect man. To make matters worse, he was also considered good-looking. In short, two naive, sheltered women were completely deceived by my father, a wealthy man with a pleasant exterior. The year after my parents got married, I was born. At that time, Ryan was 10 years old. According to Ryan, after experiencing one divorce, my father seemed to have learned his lesson, at least a little, and treated my mother better than he had treated Rachel. Additionally, my mother had a bright and carefree personality. Even when my father did or said terrible things, she wouldn't dwell on them, and would wake up the next morning as if nothing had happened. This likely helped her cope. That's why my parents' marriage, despite some arguments, managed to last for 13 years. But to put it another way, it only lasted 10. When I was 13, my parents separated for the same reason my father had divorced Rachel. My father grew dissatisfied with my mother and escalated his verbal abuse until she was ultimately forced out. However, there was one key difference this time. My father did not demand to keep his son. I still remember that day vividly. My father screamed at my mother to leave. My mother was in tears. Then my father said, "This one isn't like Ryan. He's useless. He has no value. Take him with you." Of course, this one referred to me. Unlike my brother, I wasn't particularly good at studying or naturally skilled at many things. Apparently, that made me unworthy in my father's eyes. A normal person would probably be deeply hurt to hear something like that from their own father. But since the man had been a villain my entire life, I felt bad but not devastated. I had simply grown numb to it. Looking at Ryan, I sometimes wonder if it was a miracle that he grew up to be such a kind, sincere, and hardworking person. Or if he turned out that way because our father served as the perfect example of what not to be. Either way, the fact that neither of us ended up as complete social misfits is something I feel genuinely grateful for. Anyway, back to the story. At 13, I left the house with my mother. At the time, Ryan was 23, and shortly after we left, he moved out on his own as well. My mother worked hard to raise me on her own. We weren't well off, but after escaping my father's tyranny, I felt peace and relief living alone with my mother. Looking back, those days were the happiest time of my life. Why was it only for a short time? Because soon after, my mother fell ill and passed away. She died just 1 year after divorcing my father. She had been feeling like she was getting headaches more often. Then, one day, she collapsed at home and never woke up again. At the time, I was still in middle school. My heart shattered, and I stopped going to school altogether. But before I had a chance to spiral completely, Ryan reached out his hand. "Jordan, come live with me. I'll take care of you." He wasted no time handling the paperwork to terminate my mother's apartment lease and took me in. By then, Ryan had already graduated from college and was working. He had a decent income for his age, so we weren't struggling financially. On top of that, he was surprisingly good at household chores, which made me respect him even more. I didn't want to just rely on him, so I tried to help with housework. But whenever I did too much, Ryan would say, "You have school to focus on, Jordan. Just do what you can." Thanks to Ryan, I always had proper meals while growing up, and I was able to attend both high school and college. Even when I was struggling with friendships, relationships, or academics during my teenage years, Ryan was always there to listen and support me. He was like a father, a mother, and a brother all in one. At times, he even felt like my best friend. I believe the only reason that was possible was because Ryan was extremely capable and skilled, and because he was a kind, compassionate person. I respect Ryan more than anyone else in the world. 3 years ago, we started living separately. It wasn't because we had a falling out or anything like that. I just felt that I couldn't rely on him forever and needed to become independent, so I moved out on my own. Even so, Ryan never stopped looking out for me. Every year on my birthday, he calls me. If our schedules align, he takes me out for drinks or treats me to a nice meal at a good restaurant. When he asked if I was free tomorrow for dinner, I immediately responded, "I'm free. Let's go," without a second thought. Ryan chuckled over the phone and said, "I'm glad you're free and that we can meet up. But I can't help but worry that you're always available at night. It's about time you got a girlfriend. But we can talk about that tomorrow. Let me know if you have a restaurant in mind." Then he hung up. Feeling excited, I looked forward to tomorrow. The next day, I finished work quickly and headed to the restaurant where I was meeting Ryan. It was the kind of place I wouldn't normally be able to afford on my own, but Ryan treated me to an amazing meal. Thanks for everything, as always. Honestly, I feel like I've been way too lucky compared to others my age. Is that really okay? I muttered, sipping wine that paired perfectly with the food. Ryan smiled and said, "Jordan, you had a tough childhood. You went through a lifetime's worth of hardship back then, so now you should feel free to enjoy as much happiness as you want. But that applies to you too, doesn't it? It wasn't just me. Didn't you also endure Dad's yelling and watch Mom cry growing up?" I wanted to acknowledge everything he had gone through too. He gave a wry smile and said, "Yeah, well, that's true." Wanting to hear more about his life lately, I asked, "So, how have things been for you recently?" That's when he brought up something unexpected. Speaking of which, last week was Mother's Day, right? I sent flowers to my birth mother, and she called to thank me. Every year, Ryan sent gifts to Rachel on Mother's Day and her birthday. After all, it wasn't like he had chosen to be separated from her, and he always said he wanted to show appreciation while he still could. I respected him for always being thoughtful toward others. Then he continued, and guess what? She's getting remarried. I was a bit surprised and asked, remarriage? You mean Rachel? Ryan simply replied, yeah. At that moment, I wondered, was he happy about it, or did he have mixed feelings about his mother marrying a man he didn't know? Then I reconsidered. Knowing my brother, it was definitely the former. I feel relieved, honestly. Ever since she was kicked out by Dad, I always worried about whether she was really okay on her own. When I moved out of the family home, I considered living with her, but she told me, I've been living alone all this time, and I'm doing just fine, so don't worry. And well, since I knew I might get married someday too, I figured I didn't have to force it. But still, aging alone is tough, and I couldn't help but worry. I knew she'd been dating a kind man 5 years younger than her for the past 3 years, and now she's finally decided to marry him. I'm really happy for her. He smiled brightly as he said that. Just as I had thought, he was genuinely happy. I had never met Rachel, but even I felt happy for her. Then Ryan suddenly paused and said, wait, I'm sorry. Talking about my mom like this must be insensitive, considering you lost yours. I quickly shook my head. Why are you apologizing? I'm really happy to hear this. I mean it. I swear. My mom always asks about you whenever we talk. She's really fond of you, Jordan. She always asks, how's Jordan doing? Is he doing okay? She even told me to let you know that if you ever need anything, you can count on her as a mother figure. Ryan said that and smiled. Hearing that filled my heart with warmth. The people around my brother were always kind-hearted, and I was sure it was because he himself was such an exceptional person. His kindness naturally attracted good people. At that moment, Ryan, you actually came. It's been so long. You're looking great. A cheerful voice called out to us. Looking up, I saw a man around my brother's age, a staff member at the restaurant. Kenneth, glad to see you. I figured if I called ahead, you'd feel obligated, so I just showed up instead, Ryan said to him. Ryan introduced him to me, saying, Jordan, this is Kenneth, one of my old classmates. He owns this place. Then, turning to Kenneth, he said, Kenneth, this is my younger brother. Handsome guy, right? I had assumed Kenneth was just a staff member, so I was surprised to learn he was actually the owner. Kenneth smiled warmly and said, So you're Ryan's younger brother? It's an honor to meet you. Please enjoy your time here tonight. He gave a polite bow. Flustered, I stammered, Oh, the honor is mine. Seeing my reaction, Ryan chuckled and said, No need to be nervous. Kenneth's a great guy. Then he noticed the bottle of brandy in Kenneth's hands and asked, Wait, that bottle. What's the occasion? Did someone order it? I wasn't familiar with brandy, so I didn't think much of it. But Ryan widened his eyes and turned to me. Jordan, do you have any idea what that is? That's an insanely expensive brandy. Kenneth nodded and said, That's right. This is our most expensive KAC. A customer at that table ordered it, so I took it out of the safe. A drink kept in a safe. I had never heard of such a thing before. Just how expensive is that? I blurted out. Jordan, this bottle costs 5 figures, Ryan said to me. What? Are you serious? I was so shocked that I couldn't help but shout. Kenneth laughed and leaned in to whisper, I'll sneak you a little taste later, Jordan. Then he walked away. I wasn't sure if someone like me, who was perfectly content with convenience store canned cocktails, deserved to taste such an extravagant drink. A short while later, an older man entered the restaurant. He spoke to the staff at the entrance. My companion should already be dining inside. Then he stepped into the main dining area. I glanced toward the table he was heading for and saw someone I recognized sitting there. Ah, My voice slipped out unintentionally. Ryan noticed my reaction and asked, "What's up? You know him." I lowered my voice and said, "Yeah. He's a manager from one of our client companies. Can't say this too loudly, but he's a real piece of work, kind of a nightmare to deal with." That person was Marcus, our client. I see. Yeah, he does have that kind of vibe, Ryan said with a small smirk. Then he pointed out, "Looks like that expensive cognac was ordered by their table." Sure enough, there was a glass of deep amber-colored brandy in front of Marcus. Considering Kirkland Corporation was a major company, I assumed they could afford such luxuries. By now, I had figured out that the older man who had just entered was Mr. Kirkland himself. He sat down with a hearty laugh and immediately picked up his glass of high-end cognac. I was watching too intently. Perhaps feeling my gaze, Marcus glanced over at me. At first, he looked away, but then, as if realizing something, he turned back and glared. Crap. I tried to avert my eyes, but then I realized if he took that as a sign of weakness, he might make things even worse for me later. I decided it was better to be direct, so I gave him a small, polite nod. Marcus abruptly stood up, holding his glass of cognac. He walked straight toward our table. Once he reached us, he stood beside our table, looking down at us with a smug expression. Then he said, Well, I never expected to see someone like you dining in a place like this." As usual, Marcus had a way of being incredibly rude. I forced a polite smile, but before I could say anything, Ryan smoothly stepped in. "I'm Jordan's brother. Tonight, we're celebrating his birthday. Thank you for always looking after him." Ryan greeted him politely. Marcus smirked. "I see. Well, it's obvious that Jordan wouldn't be able to afford this place on his own, so his older brother decided to splurge, huh? But don't you think that's a bit much, even for a birthday? You must not be making much money if you're still treating your younger brother like this. I imagine you're just as unimpressive as he is." I was used to being insulted, but when my brother was insulted, I felt anger. I lost my temper and blurted out without thinking. "Marcus, you can insult me all you want. I'm used to it. But I won't stand for you insulting my brother. Please leave." When I saw Marcus's face tense up at my words, I thought, oh no. Normally, I kept things diplomatic, carefully dodging Marcus's provocations. But hearing him mock my brother had made me lose my cool, and it was too late to take it back. Marcus's voice dropped to a chilling tone as he said, "Oh, you've grown quite bold, Jordan, speaking to me like that. You really must not know fear." For a second, I panicked. Should I apologize? Should I grovel? But no, why should I have to apologize? I hadn't done anything wrong. So instead of backing down, I met Marcus's glare head-on. Marcus sneered down at me. "Get on your knees and apologize, Jordan. It'd be quite a sight, don't you think? A man bowing down in a place like this. Our fellow diners would be in for a real treat." I had absolutely no intention of apologizing. I glared back at him even harder. Seeing this, Marcus muttered, "If you really won't apologize." Then, without warning, he flung the contents of his glass, drenching my brother's face with the expensive cognac. "Whoa!" Ryan yelped in surprise. I was shocked. "Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing? Are you insane?" I was caught off guard by Marcus's unexpected action and hastily asked that. "You're the crazy one for talking back to me. Now get on your knees. If you don't want to lose your job, you'll do as I say," Marcus said. Ryan, still dripping, suddenly chuckled. "Wow, now this is unexpected. I've been through quite a lot in my 37 years, but never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd get a face full of high-end cognac. I might be the only person in the world to experience something this unique. Honestly, I should be honored. I mean, how much did that splash alone cost? A few hundred? A few $1,000s? It's like being showered in cash. What a thrill. His voice was so unbelievably cheerful that I almost laughed. The only one not amused was Marcus. What the hell? Is your brother insane? You're both out of your minds, Marcus declared. Ryan wiped his face with the back of his hand and said, Jordan, I know you wouldn't do this, but just to be clear, you don't need to apologize to this guy. Marcus scoffed. Your brother's pretty cocky too. Well, whatever. If you absolutely refuse to apologize, that's fine. I'll just cut off business with Jordan's company. Without our deal, Jordan's company might go under. And if that happens, he'll have to take responsibility and resign. No, he'll probably be fired immediately after the deal is canceled. Wait a second. Either way, the company itself will be gone. Well, I guess losing his job is inevitable then. He laughed as if he were enjoying himself. At this point, Kenneth had returned with a towel and quietly handed it to Ryan. Then, Mr. Kirkland of Kirkland Corporation, who had been sitting at the table with Marcus, also noticed the commotion and walked over to our table. Surrounded by various people, Marcus sneered, "Ha ha. Everyone's watching you, Jordan. You insulted an important client, and now you're fired." Ha. As he laughed, I noticed something. Both Kenneth and Mr. Kirkland were looking at him with cold, disgusted expressions. Ryan, on the other hand, looked like he was having the time of his life, grinning like he was thoroughly enjoying the situation. I took in the moment and confidently said, "You're the one who's getting fired first." Hearing my words, Marcus's eyes widened in shock. "What the hell are you talking about even? Now you dare talk back to me. Unbelievable." Mr. Kirkland said, "This is the one who should be speechless. Here is me." Marcus's face showed an expression that looked both disappointed and exhausted. Hearing that, Kenthi gave a wry smile. "What do you mean, Mr. Kirkland?" Marcus asked, sounding flustered. Mr. Kirkland didn't respond and simply hung his head in silence. "Marcus, you really didn't know." He smiled slightly before delivering the final blow. "Jordan's brother Ryan is the president of Ryan Corporation. You may not recognize the name, but surely you've heard of our dining group." Kenneth, the owner of the shop and my brother's old friend, explained that to Marcus. "Our dining group? You mean the giant restaurant corporation that owns 300 locations nationwide? You're saying that he's the president?" He was practically shouting in disbelief. Ryan reluctantly took out his business card holder from his pocket and handed over his card. "I only introduced myself as Jordan's brother earlier, so I apologize for the late introduction. I'm Ryan, president of Ryan Corporation." Marcus took the card with trembling hands as my brother handed it to him. "Ah, I see. I sincerely apologize for my behavior. Your brother has always been a great help to us," Marcus said in a trembling voice, but it was far too late. "And what is that pathetic attempt at a turnaround? Do you think we've all forgotten what you just said? Nearly everyone in this restaurant heard you insult Mr. Kensington's brother, not to mention you poured liquor on the man himself. That's not something a rational human being would do." Mr. Kirkland shook his head. "In this day and age, incidents like this spread fast. If this gets out, our company's reputation will be in ruins." Mr. Kirkland then added, "Honestly, you've had way too many problems with clients for a long time. I've had enough." Marcus collapsed onto the floor in shock, completely dazed. But when he suddenly snapped back to reality, he fell to his knees and bowed deeply. "Mr. Kensington, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." Ryan responded cheerfully, "I don't mind at all. In fact, I found it amusing, so I should be grateful. Having Cognac thrown in my face, that's way too lucky. Our company is going to be even more prosperous now." But immediately after, he turned serious. "I don't care about what happened to me, but I won't forgive you for insulting my brother. Apologize to him by bowing down on the floor." Marcus, looking completely broken as if he would do whatever he was told, immediately dropped at his knees and said, "I'm truly sorry, Jordan." At this point, having him bowing down didn't make me feel any better. It was probably just because my brother told him to do it, so it didn't feel sincere at all. Since I had nothing to say, I just stood there silently. Then Mr. Kirkland yelled, "Enough, Marcus. This is disgraceful. Let's go. Resign and reflect on your actions. Everyone, he's fired." I sincerely apologize for the trouble he caused tonight. After handing his credit card to Kenneth for the payment, he dragged Marcus out of the restaurant. Once Kenneth finished processing the payment with Mr. Kirkland's card and returned it to him, he headed back into the kitchen. "Thanks, Ryan. Do you want to wash your face?" When I asked him that, Ryan grinned and said, "I'm good. Until I get home and take a shower, I think I'll just enjoy the scent of cognac on my face." His ridiculous comment made us both laugh. Then, at some point, Kenneth appeared out of nowhere and placed 2 glasses filled with amber-colored liquor on our table, saying, "Here you go." "This is?" I wasn't sure, but Ryan immediately confirmed. "It's the most expensive cognac in the house. The same one Mr. Kirkland and his group were drinking earlier." "It's a birthday present for you, Jordan," Kenneth said. "Kenneth, this cognac is way too expensive. If you're treating us, your bar might go bankrupt," Ryan said, half joking, half serious. Kenneth then explained, "Actually, Mr. Kirkland's table had ordered 3 more glasses of cognac, and the amount was already included in the bill. But with all that chaos earlier, we missed the timing to serve them. Then, before they left, Mr. Kirkland told me at the register, 'I'll pay for those as well. So please serve them to Mr. Kensington and his brother.'" Hearing this, Ryan laughed and said, "As expected, Mr. Kirkland is a successful businessman running a big company, and he's got a big heart to match. Well then, let's accept this with gratitude, Jordan." He lightly clinked his glass against mine and said, "Cheers." I let out a small wry smile and said, "Cheers," before cautiously taking a sip of the luxurious cognac. Fruity aroma. It's different from wine. That was my first impression. It tasted like something for grown-ups. Though I was already 27 and technically an adult, I felt like I wasn't quite qualified to appreciate this kind of drink yet. I'm still as pretentious as ever. Does that mean Ryan isn't inexperienced? Well, considering he's a true celebrity, I guess it's only natural. Still, no matter the situation, wasting such a fine drink by throwing it on someone's face like Marcus did was unthinkable. Both Ryan and I took our time savoring the exquisite cognac. The next day, when I called Kirkland Incorporated Corporation regarding our business deal, an employee informed me that Marcus had resigned and that a different employee, Sean, would now be in charge. From then on, I worked with Sean, who was a very pleasant person, making business interactions much smoother. I was relieved that I no longer had to walk on eggshells around Marcus. Mr. Kirkland personally apologized to me again, and he even went to see Ryan to apologize in person. Since Ryan was a forgiving person, there were no lingering tensions between our companies. In fact, he swiftly consulted the police and legal experts to ensure that no videos of Ryan getting drenched in cognac would be spread on social media. He had it legally prohibited from being posted online. For some reason, whenever Ryan gets involved with troublesome people, they often end up reforming and becoming better individuals. Well, this probably because Ryan is generous, but also someone who firmly points out what's wrong. He punishes yet forgives. This balance is probably what makes him so remarkable. Maybe even our father, Mark, might mellow out with age and become a better person when faced with Ryan. If that day comes, I hope he will finally apologize to Ryan's mother, Rachel, and to my late mother, Marie, and learn to treat people with kindness. With my brother by my side, I believe that's possible. And I want to believe that I have inherited some of his good traits as well. So, I will live my life with sincerity. That's what I decided. My name is Donald, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a systems engineer. Due to certain circumstances, I changed jobs when I was 26, but my profession hasn't changed. I'm still a systems engineer. I just left the US, that's all. After graduating from college, I landed a job at an 8 company, my first choice. It felt like a promising start to my career. I was motivated, my colleagues and superiors were kind, and the workplace had great communication. But I quit the company before even 3 years had passed. The reason? A woman named Lucy Matthews. Lucy was assigned to the same department as me when I started as a newbie. She had a unique presence and was beautiful, standing out in a world where cuteness was the norm. As we worked together, we grew closer and eventually started dating. I was shocked and overjoyed when Lucy confessed her feelings to me. I'm a plain guy, a nerd who struggles with stylish conversation, while Lucy was the center of attention at work, almost like a Madonna figure. She seemed out of my league, and even now, it feels like a miracle that she chose me. Lucy was well aware of her beauty and knew how to present herself. Embarrassingly, I was so afraid of her losing interest in me that I ended up being at her beck and call, always on edge. She quickly grew tired of me. Her last words still sting. You might be capable at work, but you're a failure as a man. Being with you, Donald, was just boring. I was crushed by the sudden breakup and those harsh words. It's not every day you get scolded so directly, especially by someone you love. It was tough, especially since Lucy, who had dumped me so cruelly, was still working right next to me. I couldn't take it anymore. Please don't laugh at me for running away. I was weak. So, I left the company I had dreamed of working for. Since then, I haven't been in touch with Lucy. On the day I resigned, she was on paid vacation. It's been 10 years since I quit. Now, I'm standing in front of the company building I once adored, and it feels like I'm reliving the emotions of my first year there. The truth is, I didn't just leave the company in a hurry. I also fled the US. In a small industry like ours, I thought it would be hard to face my former colleagues if I got another job, so I decided to go somewhere where no one knew me. Foreign companies are truly meritocratic, and I daringly left the US to test my skills. It turned out to be a great decision. Despite my struggles with social skills, I found a company that highly valued my expertise as a systems engineer. I immersed myself in cutting-edge technology, and before I knew it, a decade had flown by. I returned to this company because an old colleague reached out and asked me to come back. It was a rather forceful invitation, so I made a request. Initially, I wanted to be employed as a regular staff member. That was my condition. I'm confident this experience will be useful when I return to my original work. So, here I am, starting over as a new employee at 36. The department I was assigned to is the same as before, but the atmosphere has changed. The employees seem more reserved now. There used to be more freedom and a lively exchange of opinions. I wonder what's caused this shift. As I surveyed the floor from the entrance, I heard a familiar voice behind me say, "Coming back like this, you've got some thick skin." While surveying the floor from the entrance, I was spoken to from behind, a voice I couldn't forget. "It's not like I came back because I wanted to," I replied. Lucy, listening to my reply, snorted discontentedly. She had the same floral perfume scent as before. "Well, since you're an attorney, no matter who your former colleague is, no matter how old you are, you're a rookie here. You're at the very bottom. Don't forget that." Lucy, who said this arrogantly, had become an action manager. With Lucy in charge of this team, I became her subordinate. Lucy, confidently walking ahead with the clacking of her heels, was as confident as ever. What bothered me, however, was the attitude of my colleagues, who were her subordinates. They seemed to be holding back around her. I carefully surveyed my surroundings and followed behind Lucy. Lucy introduced me as a returning rookie. Despite running away from this company, I came back. She introduced me as if mocking me. I'm Donald. Nice to meet you." When I greeted them, sparse applause broke out. When I was shown to my desk, I was surprised to see the one next to it. On the desk next to mine, there were 3 monitors, and in front of them, a small figure of a horse was displayed. Next to it was an eye massage and a shoulder-pounding stick. I could feel the strong presence. "What? Is there something wrong with my desk?" The one peering at me from below as she said this was a short, skinny girl. The inside of her wolf-cut hair was bleached white. The eyeliner around her eyes flared like a cat's. "Nice to meet you. I'm Emma Smith. Call me Emma." She stretched out her small right hand, full of rings, and I shook it back. Her hand was as small as an elementary school student's. As soon as Emma took her seat, she put on white headphones. After that, she began to work at an astonishing speed. Thinking that she might only be assigned simple tasks, I stealthily glanced at Emma's screen. I let out a surprised voice involuntarily. What Emma was getting done at an incredible speed was not simple work. She was solving intricate puzzles and codes with incredible speed. No doubt the ace of this department is Emma. I'm certain of it. "What's up? Interested in me?" Emma, who I thought was only looking at her monitor, said this without changing her gaze. Caught in the act of sneaking glances, I felt a bit guilty. "You can look at me more openly if you want." She turned her face towards me and smiled as she told me this with an upward glance and a smile. I could only respond with a grunt and scratch my head. By all means, feel free to compliment me. Being told this so refreshingly felt, well, refreshing. The atmosphere in the office had changed, but everyone's skills hadn't diminished. That gave me a sense of relief. That said, it seemed that Boss Lucy might be responsible for this change in atmosphere. On my first day as a system engineer, the task given to me was stapling documents. The only time I touched a computer was to check company emails. Lucy intentionally kept me away from computers. In other words, she only assigned me to do miscellaneous tasks. Newbies make the coffee in this office. Since you, Donald, are the most recent and lowest in rank, please take care of the chores. Oh, and also, please make a lunch reservation for us. Saying that, Lucy left a stack of cards from restaurants at my desk. Seeing this, Emma gave a wry smile. She always does this to new people. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask me. Okay, I've been through it too. Being encouraged by Emma, I couldn't help but smile wryly too. Being encouraged by a girl almost 10 years younger made me feel like I'd regressed to my pitiful past. "Thanks, that helps," I said as I bowed my head in thanks. She looked at me as if she discovered a rare creature. "W what? Is there something wrong?" I quickly checked myself, wondering if I'd spilled coffee on my shirt or something. I found nothing wrong. "No, it's not that. It's rare to hear a grown man say he's grateful to a young girl. That is new for me." She quickly put her headphones back on and got back to work. I touched my cheek, worried that I might have appeared pathetic. A week had passed, and I still hadn't been given any proper work. Lucy began to pile up chores from other departments on my desk. It seemed like the tasks within our department weren't enough. "Good morning, Mr. McKenna." Rubbing her sleepy eyes, Emma arrived at work just in time. She dumped her backpack on her desk and headed straight to the kitchen to make coffee. At that moment, I spotted something under my desk. I picked it up and was taken aback. It was a flamboyantly pink and blue bikini top. I hurriedly looked around. Luckily, no one seemed to notice that Emma's backpack was left half open on her desk. I picked up what had fallen out, but I wasn't sure what to do next. I thought about sneaking it back into her bag, but that would be tricky if Emma came back while I was doing it. As I was trying to figure out my next move, Emma's voice, tinged with a sigh, reached my ears. Without thinking, I jumped up from my chair and looked up. Emma was standing there with a teasing gaze that made my heart flutter. I saw a side of her that was rarely shown, so feminine and gentle. This was on the floor, I stammered, handing her the item. Emma leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "Reality is 100 times cuter than imagination." Her breath was warm against my hair, and I slid off the chair, overwhelmed by the strong scent of her perfume. Emma's perfume was subtle when we sat next to each other, but up close, it became alluring. My heart raced as I realized I was being teased by someone so much younger. It made me feel less confident. "I'm going to a night pool with friends today. Thanks for picking this up for me," Emma said, extending her hand. Lost in thought, I first handed her the swimsuit and then took her hand to get up. "It's not safe for a young girl to go to a night pool dressed like that. Isn't it a bad idea?" I said, sounding like a worried father. Emma looked at me, confused, and then burst into laughter. "I've never heard that from my own parents," she said, still laughing. Embarrassed, I mumbled, "Give me a break. If you're worried, Miss McKenna, I won't go. But I expect a reward in return." She pushed the swimsuit into my pocket and laughed. I was captivated by Emma's mischievous smile. It was clear she was a charming little devil. After this day, Emma and I became much closer. It felt like she had me wrapped around her finger. When Emma showed up for dinner instead of going to the night pool, I was breathless. She had a different aura, her loosely tied hair, a black mini dress with Dr. Martens boots, and cherry blossom-colored lips made her look both melancholic and sexy. "I'm lucky to be at such a fancy restaurant," Emma said softly. She laughed helplessly, and I found myself chuckling too. "Do you have any food allergies or dislikes?" I asked. She replied, "No, I don't," though she seemed a bit overwhelmed by the setting. When I finished ordering, Emma looked at me with admiration. "You speak French? That's impressive," she said, clearly surprised. I told her about my experiences working abroad, and she asked a barrage of questions, making us pause our meal several times. I was happy she was so interested, so I shared things I had never told anyone before. Emma reacted with laughter and surprise at each new revelation. "Let me hear about you, Miss Smith," I said. She insisted, "Call me Emma. If you don't, I won't respond." I nervously called her Emma, and she responded with a smile and a tilt of her head that nearly knocked me off my feet. That night, I learned a lesson. I was no match for her charm. The next day, Lucy, whom I ran into in the hallway, teased me loudly, "Looks like you've got a thing for younger girls now. Wasn't it me you were infatuated with before?" Her comment made everyone around us whisper and glance in my direction. I was taken aback. "I thought you'd be married and retired by now. That's why I returned to this company. I didn't expect you to be still on the market." In my words, Lucy's face turned bright red. The whispers around us grew louder. Lucy had already started spreading stories of my past among my colleagues. I had once come across her animatedly sharing stories of how I used to be head over heels for her. While it's true that I was infatuated with Lucy, I'm not ashamed of it. However, her exaggerations and smug way of narrating irked me. Being able to pay her back a bit felt somewhat refreshing. "What's still on the market?" "That's rude. It's just that I haven't met a man who's worthy of me." "Stop making fun of me." Lucy raised her voice in protest. Apparently, she is in a close relationship at the moment. She rambled on about her partner, a high flyer in the industry, being more wonderful than any men in our company. Although no one had asked, it seemed like she didn't want people to think she was single. It's typical Lucy, who's always had a boyfriend without a break. There's no doubt she has someone now, but when it comes to marriage, men look at different aspects of a woman, whether living together would be enjoyable or tiresome. In other words, while Lucy is popular but not married, she's great as a girlfriend but not suitable for marriage. The current situation demonstrates that clearly. Well, that's the thing. Don't compare me with someone who can only handle young girls. Leaving behind such a dismissive remark, the visibly annoyed Lucy stormed off. I watched as she took out her anger on her subordinates while she left. Oh, Lucy's boyfriend? Yeah, I know him. He's from the development department of our rival company. He's really cheesy and, well, creepy. During lunch break, Emma and I were nibbling on some sweet bread at our adjacent desks when I asked about Lucy's boyfriend. Emma gave a rather disgusted look as she filled me in about the man. The fact that she herself had been hit on by him seemed to disgust her to her core, which I found amusing and couldn't help but chuckle. It's not funny. I think that guy is a schemer. He even tried to talk me into transferring and suggested I bring some information as a gift. The conversation quickly took a grim turn. What do you mean by that? I stopped nibbling on the pastry. Exactly what it sounds like. That man is trying every trick in the book to steal our development information. Emma crumpled up her bread bag and, with a dangerous smile, delivered her words. Given the circumstances, it appeared that Lucy was his current target. From what I gathered today, Lucy seemed quite smitten with him. I could only hope that my bad feeling wouldn't turn out to be true. I know who you really are, Donald said, nonchalantly revealing my secret as she looked at her computer monitor. What, you're joking, right? The words slipped out of my mouth, to which Emma gave a wicked grin. On her computer screen was my confidential transfer order, which hadn't been disclosed publicly. She seemed to have effortlessly bypassed the HR computer security and discovered the truth. She confessed she had been suspicious from the start and seemed to have noticed me reading the program source code displayed on her computer monitor. Nobody in this department can read code like you can. I knew right away you were not just an ordinary Joe. I was left scratching my head, my cover blown. Now, shall we swiftly drain the puss and make this workplace more pleasant? Emma said in a mockingly polite tone, her face plastered with the mischievous grin she often wore. Roger that, I conceded, throwing up my hands in surrender. I decided to dive straight into the harsh treatment. I was able to catch the tail of the information leak quite easily. Lucy had always been careless. There were traces of her habits, even in the program source code. She had copied the program of a recently developed system, and there were traces of her attempting to take it outside the company. More precisely, traces of her attempt to erase evidence of her actions were clearly left behind. Others might have overlooked it, but not me. Instead of making a public spectacle, we agreed to handle this matter discreetly and consult with HR. There was also a slight degree of past compassion involved. There's no way that was Lucy's reaction when called by the boss and informed about the leak. Furthermore, she reputedly suggested that Emma might be the culprit if there was a leak. Her basis was that Emma disrespects me, her section manager, a clear personal grudge. This conversation took place the day I met with my boss. Unusually, Luke, who usually leaves work on time, was staying late. Both Emma and I often work overtime. Emma prefers to wrap up her work at a good stopping point before heading home, while I typically get caught up in miscellaneous tasks. I occasionally glanced over at Lucy, who was unusually glued to her computer. I suspected she was staying behind with some ulterior motive. Are you guys not leaving yet? You're wasting electricity. Lucy yells at us from afar. Her voice carries a sharp edge of impatience. I can feel Lucy's anxiety as if I could touch it. She must be trying to cover up all her wrongdoings. But all the access codes have been rewritten by my coworker Emma. Someone else might have been able to crack it, but breaking through a system that Emma has constructed is impossible for Lucy. Even from RC, we can hear Lucy's screaming. The next moment, a loud alarm blares from Lucy's computer, signaling an emergency. She's fallen into the trap I've set. Upon hearing the noise, the security guard rushes into the floor. Employees who had been working overtime in other departments also gather around. I didn't do anything. It just started going off by itself. It's a bug. A bug. Who the hell programmed this? Lucy stands up, pointing at her computer. The alarm continues. Then Emma steps smoothly to the computer and silences the alarm in an instant. As soon as the noise stops, Lucy's face relaxes. In the next moment, she points at Emma and starts yelling. "This is your doing. You're the one who leaked the information too, aren't you? You set up this trap because you didn't want me investigating you." Lucy doesn't get to finish her sentence because the boss shows himself among the gawkers. "Lucy, this isn't a good look. You are the main culprit behind the data leak, aren't you? Falling into this trap is proof of that." The boss explains to Lucy that all the evidence was gathered in my internal investigation. Lucy chokes and looks at me. "You're lying. Donald doesn't have these skills. What could a good-for-nothing errand boy do?" Lucy glares at me, then rounds on the boss. The boss sighs in exasperation. "Donald, I'm glad we followed your plan. I never expected to catch such a big fish." Lucy looks at me dumbfounded as the boss speaks to me amicably. She clearly hadn't expected that I was working with the boss. Donald is a talent we invited to our company as a supervisor. He's my right-hand man whom I brought in from England. At the boss's words, Lucy is stunned into silence. "We'll notify you of your punishment later. For now, go home and refrain from work until we get in touch." Upon hearing the boss's words, Lucy collapses on the spot. Later, Lucy gets transferred to a small branch office in Nebraska. I end up taking over Lucy's position. Emma complained about her desk being moved away from mine, but there's nothing that could be done about that. Although the ending left a sour taste in our mouths, the atmosphere at work changed completely. I think it's getting closer to how it was when I was around. A workplace with a good flow of communication where lively and candid exchanges of opinion are possible and performance quickly starts to improve. Everyone on the floor acknowledges that Emma is contributing to this change. I think we can continue to work together like this forever. That's what I was leisurely thinking, but Emma isn't someone who would settle here. A year later, she receives an offer to study abroad in Japan, bringing home the latest technology and information. That is her mission. The company is covering all the expenses for her study abroad. She had absolutely no reason to refuse. When this conversation came up, I was shaken. We never openly acknowledged it, but we consider each other as lovers. I lack the capacity to cheerfully wave goodbye as my irreplaceable partner sets off across the sea. How can I make her stay? That's all I could think about. Even when I'm with Emma, all I can do is contemplate how to make her stay in the U.S., making it impossible to enjoy our time. Should I propose marriage as a last resort? I'm disgusted by myself for even considering such a low method. Emma laughs as if she sees right through my thoughts. "Hey, are you going to be lonely if I go to study abroad?" Emma, who has always been one step ahead of me, stops and turns to look at me. "Of course I'll be lonely. That's a given." Emma chuckles happily on hearing my reply. I thought this was the only moment to mention marriage. Just when I gathered my courage and tried to voice it, Emma's slender finger touched my lips. "No, not now. When I come back from Japan, then you can move on me. I'll say yes right away." Emma looks at me with unusually serious eyes. After she finishes her sentence, she gives me a soft smile. I raise both my hands in a surrendering pose. I've never won against Emily anyway. I get it. I promise. And so, I sent her off. 4 years later, I'm waiting for Emma at JFK Airport. It's not like me, but I've prepared a bouquet of flowers. I've had my opening line decided since 4 years ago. "Welcome back. Will you marry me?" My heart feels like it's about to leap out of my mouth. The electronic display announces the arrival of Emma's flight. It's only a little longer. In a little while, a new chapter of our story will begin. Of course, the ending is planned to be a happy one. How did you find today's story? Your subscription and likes will be an encouragement for my content creation. I look forward to your comments. See you in the next video.